going to do a slide makeover. Now you might say, well, surely the slides should come at the end, not at the start of the thought process. But most people, they just open up PowerPoint and they just start firing stuff down. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to start with the slides and reverse engineer this thing and see where it takes us. So here is a slide from my presentation on tips for the new year. There it is. And it's very typical and it's bloody awful. It's text, it's a table, it's just loads of stuff in there that you've got to work into to try and figure out what it says. And here's a top-down view of another presentation. And again, you just see it's all text. It's just intimidating. And it's like saying to the audience, I'm going to go through all of this and you're going to watch me go through all of this. And it just doesn't work. Sometimes people use visuals, but often they're decorations more than visuals. They're just there to visually punctuate the point they're making, but it might be a graph or an infographic or an icon or some sort of piece of clip art. It's not very well chosen. It doesn't illustrate. It doesn't help you to tell a story. And then there are templates like this green effort here. What's that all about? Or this one, or even this one. And it's just like, content isn't great. It's not very engaging. So let's decorate it or dress it up a little bit or color it. But actually you're just adding noise. You're just adding even more clutter to a bad job and it adds no value. So let's completely clear the decks. Here are my 4 points. I'm just written them down in sentence form. These are the 4 points I want you to take away. So is there anything we can do with these? Well, there's nothing wrong with bullet points, but they should be a single ifix. They don't have to be a single word. But you tend to read, when you read a page of text, you tend to pick out chunks of text. Your eye might drop on the line 2 or 3 times. So a phrase or something you can grab in one ifix is fine. And you can also take a lesson from designers of infographics who separate maybe the numbers from the text that explains those numbers by using different colors or different font sizes. And you see this all of the time and it's very effective. So can we make the numbers or the key points jump out of the bullet points? So let's do that. Now the template. Well, I mean, you don't really need a template in many ways. Like content on a white background is fine, or just content if the picture fills the screen. But it could be an option. It could add value. Here's quite a fancy template from a presentation on the photoelectric effect, where the whole thing was set on a running track and there are photons in the background. And it was just a nice idea. It creates a world in which the presentation inhabits. This one on the Chinese character system with that kind of watermarked, nice sort of papyrus background to give it a feel that harmonizes with the content. And can you guess what this presentation is about? It's how a particular product was marketed. But which product? Can you guess from the colors and the fonts? Well, if you guessed Brennan's Bread, you were exactly right. But it doesn't have to be as subtle as this. Even just using a consistent, clean, composed background, it creates a world in which the presentation, it looks professional, it looks curated, and it looks clear, and that's good enough. So let's add a very simple template to our presentation. I like a kind of a nice pale blue background. And I've separated the title from the main body of the slide with different color, although it's a bit gaudy looking, maybe go for gray on blue. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I'm thinking more about visuals here. I've made the text more visual to make the points jump out. Why not use visuals to make the points jump out visually? So here instead I've used 4 images to make those 4 points. But I haven't just used any visuals. And this is the key thing about really looking closely at your slides and asking questions about them. Why, for example, did I choose this lady? Well, this is the great Marie Kondo, the vertical folding declutterer extraordinaire. And she has all these tips about decluttering your life and clearing your head. And maybe you use some examples from her writings. Or an example, better still, a story about how you tried out something last year in your own wardrobe, in your own bedroom, and it made a difference to you. Why did you choose this guy? Well, maybe he's just scored a very high profile, memorable goal that the audience will be aware of. And hopefully at the time you watch this video, he will have scored some or other memorable and important goal. But then you say, well, maybe I shouldn't use a male example because I'm going into a school and it's a mixed school or a girls' school. I'm trying to get people into sport. So maybe use a female role model. Or in this case, an Irish female role model. So depending on your audience, who do you choose? Or if it's the new year and you're trying to encourage people to exercise, showing young, fit, professional people might be a bit intimidating. So why not show them older people? But to be honest, those two older people look insane. So let's go for, this is a better picture, I think. They look a little bit calmer, don't they? Although smiling when you're jogging isn't really something people do. So I'm not sure about that. But again, choose the image to suit the audience and where you're taking them. The salad, well, maybe it's not just any salad, but one you're going to demonstrate or make in front of the audience or bring in examples of. Maybe you've got a list of ingredients, or instead of listing them all on the screen, you have some notes or a handout or even a link to where they can get their hands on that recipe. And the notes or links to other material is a great way of subcontracting the clutter of the presentation. In other words, putting all of the detail into the notes and using the live presentation to do things that are more interactive, more visual, more demonstrative, more anecdotal, all of the good stuff that makes presentations work. So there we have our 4 points, and you can link the visuals back to those points. Now the visuals have become like icons in their own right, and your visual memory is so powerful you can reconnect the points to the visual examples that you shared earlier. But to be honest, having constructed this presentation myself, this hypothetical presentation, I kind of like this one the best. I think this is the one I would use in the end and zoom in and out of the different examples, which you can do quite easily with transitions. If you want to know more about how to do this, how to create better visuals and use this to in some ways reverse engineer your whole thought process, give me a shout. But my cheesy catchphrase, which I've just this minute made up in regard to your slides, be clear in the new year.